This is how airflow is supposed to be done in PC cases at fair pricing. Lots of fans already pre-installed, full mesh in the front, and lots of room for hardware and coolers. All that, my friends, for the most part, applies to the Enermax StarryKnight SK30 case. Of course, Enermax is well known for their heavy ARGB presence, which is why we get a whole lot of bling bling here for all those that are into it. In terms of pricing, the StarryKnight SK30 currently goes for somewhere around the $90 to $100 range, which given the overall feature set of this model is fairly attractive, I gotta say. You'll understand what I mean and why we shouldn't be complaining about the price. But of course, certain compromises needed to be made. As usual, included with the case comes an accessory box with a manual, screws and Velcro straps. First of all, a few words regarding the aesthetics. That curved mesh front, admittedly, from a design point of view, isn't really my cup of tea, but objectively speaking, I wouldn't be calling this a bad look. Tastes simply differ at the end of the day. What I really like, on the other hand, is the fact that the fans are nicely visible through the mesh. The overall build quality is totally okay. It's certainly not the best of the best, with partially slightly thinner steel in a few spots along with cheaper plastic, but given the fact what we are being offered here, especially at the given price point, I don't think we should be complaining too much. The StarryKnight SK30 supports up to eATX motherboards and allows for tons of fans and radiators to be installed. It's just that there's not really a lot of room for an army of hard drives and or SSDs, so you'll maybe have to tone your local storage down a bit. Pre-installed in front are a complete set of 3 140mm SQA ARGB fans, the transparent type by Enermax, which are known to not only look great, but offer good performance too. On the rear, there's one of those classic SQA ARGB fans with 120mm. At this point, I'd like to point out that the manufacturer is giving us the option to create some sort of tunnel effect through the PSU shroud by allowing us to mount 2 pieces of 120mm fans onto the shroud. That's a great idea for additional graphics card cooling. And while we're at it, there's a very convenient GPU holder on board, which can be moved around by loosening a pair of screws on the back. You can then adjust the height to your liking. In theory, you surely could make use of those rails up there, maybe for some custom water cooling setups, I suppose. And yet again, I mastered another transition: radiators. In the front, there's room for up to a 360 or 280mm. At the top, we're talking of the very same dimensions. And thanks to the mounting holes moved sideways, there won't or shouldn't be any clearance issues with motherboard heatsinks and the like. Once you pull off that front cover, you quickly realize that Enermax hasn't included any dust filter here. On the one hand, understandable to achieve maximum airflow, but on the other hand, it would have been nice if there was an optional dust filter included. This does lead to a deduction of points in my book. At the top, there's one of those usual magnetic dust filters, and on the bottom for the power supply, one of the cheap kind, which does its job well enough and is removable. In the past, I would have been very disappointed about not having any rubber grommets inside a case, as is the case with today's StarryKnight SK30. But nowadays, that's no cardinal sin anymore, due to power supplies no longer coming with ugly cable strings. For budget-oriented cases, I'm therefore fine with skimping on rubber grommets. Enermax has decided for an additional cathode hole inside the PSU shroud, though. The PSU that's normally always hidden away for no one to see finally gets to make some eye contact again. Today's case also allows for vertical graphics card installation, even though I've never really been a big fan of that. One of the biggest drawbacks with this StarryKnight SK30 most likely is the fact that close to every single one of those extension slot brackets need to be broken out. Within this price range, a real shocker. That's subpar, but in total, Enermax at least includes us 3 pieces of reusable brackets. So that somewhat corrects my rating again, but I'm not fully convinced. 2.5-inch SSDs, up to 2 pieces can be mounted the classic way, right behind the motherboard tray. The included hard drive cage, however, only comes with a single tray for 3.5-inch mechanical drives. The installation is toolless. Luckily, an additional drive can be screwed into place onto the top of the cage. Needless to say, that also applies for 2.5-inch drives, such as SSDs. The hard drive cage cannot be relocated though, but can be removed from the case altogether, if you so desire. I was a little shocked when I first saw the fans being connected by Molex at first, but luckily you don't need to panic, because Molex only acts as a backup emergency solution just in case the user doesn't have the option to connect all these fans via that standard 3-pin fan connectors via motherboard. I'm sure a lot of your eyes wandered off to the already integrated ARGB controller/hub. That controller offers us up to 6 5-volt 3-pin ARGB headers. Right out of the box, the reset button is being sacrificed to take on the duty of switching between effects and colors, but if you wish and have the possibility, you could hook up the controller/hub directly to your motherboard and centrally synchronize and control the lighting from there. The finished test system makes a good impression in the StarryKnight SK30. The assembly process was pretty convenient without any noteworthy hassles to speak of. It's about time case manufacturers get the hang of it and get better. The given airflow is great, I gotta admit. I mean, that's a big advantage with mesh panels in front. When it comes to noise levels, these Enermax Squaw fans do not disappoint. Surely quite a few of you have already made your own experiences with these. I have only good things to say about these. Long graphics cards with up to 405mm in length do not pose any issues in here. As a matter of fact, even the hottest GPUs should be running nicely inside this StarryKnight SK30, since once again, as said before, we can draw in some air through the bottom chamber and direct it to the graphics card. The cable management, I've had a bit of trouble in a few spots, but that's mostly on me since I'm a very lazy cable router. So with that kept in mind, I'd still consider this a pretty acceptable attempt at cable management, if I may say so about myself. What I personally miss seeing a bit is a USB Type-C port. For today's standards, such sure would have been nice to have, but of course it's understandable that the manufacturer had to save some money in a few corners in order to be able to send this case to the shelves for $90 to $100. Those fans alone are worth a lot, and that ARGB hub isn't too shabby either. I'd say with the StarryKnight SK30, Enermax has built a case that practically masters the very basics of PC cases and furthermore attracts us consumers with some really nice pricing. Needless to say, certain compromises needed to be made, but none of those probably can be considered real serious deal breakers. Which is why I can recommend this case without any doubt. Enermax, you've done a fine job with this one. With that being said, thanks a lot for watching, my friends, and until the next video.